Chapter 4. Wednesday morning, Margaret's teacher came into our classroom right after the pledge to visit with my teacher. This is because the fourth graders are supposed to be responsible enough to be left alone for a few minutes. I don't think this is such a hot idea. I know Margaret, and I never leave her alone in my room. But I was glad. Margaret's teacher wears her hair swirled up like a tornado, and I think if a bobby pin ever came shooting out of it, it would look like lightning. I like watching for that. I am going to be the director of our talent show, Margaret's teacher said. Each morning we'll have a little trial run of a couple of acts. That way everything will run smoothly on the big night. My teacher made a face at Margaret's teacher. It meant they didn't believe that for a minute, but they had to say it anyway. Who would like to go first today? All the kids except me raised their hands, so my teacher just started with the first row. My act is called Cartwheel Extravaganza, said Maria. She went up to the front of the classroom and did a cartwheel into the chalkboard. We were all very surprised to learn that a chalkboard that big wouldn't flatten a kid when it fell off the wall. Are you all right? My teacher asked, lifting it off her. Oh, sure, said Maria. I always do that. Well, just in case, why don't you go visit the nurse, and we'll make sure there are no chalkboards on the stage Saturday night. Then he called on the next kid, whose name is Morris, or Boris, I always forget. My act is named Cartwheel Wham-a-Rama, Boris said. He jumped out of his seat. Wait, no, my teacher cried, throwing his arms around the fish tank. But it was too late. Boris cartwheeled to the front of the room, where he didn't knock over the fish tank, thank goodness. Only the hamster cage. Zippy and Bump looked pretty surprised to be let out on the floor like that, and they let Boris scoop them right up. Thank you, Norris, my teacher said. Are you all right? Oh, I wrote a big N on my arm so I wouldn't forget. We'll make sure there are no hamster cages on the stage either, and just to be on the safe side, why don't you go visit the nurse too? I don't know why my teacher bothered with sending Maria and Norris to the nurse. All she ever does when you go in to tell her how sick you are is roll her eyes. She always looks bored, as if she's just killing time until a really good disease hits the school. Maria and Norris could have head lumps the size of toasters, and all our nurse would do is hand them a frozen sponge. Now, my teacher was saying, does anyone have an act that isn't cartwheeling? Half the kids put their hands down. My teacher called on a boy named Joe and asked him what his act was. Secretly, I was hoping it was cartwheeling anyway. Joe is really short, and he has really short everything. Really short name, really short hair, really short ears. He has really short arms and legs too. So if he did a cartwheel, I bet it would look like a starfish rolling across the floor. And I would like to see that. But nope. Joe took a harmonica from his pocket. I'm going to play this, and my dog Buddy is going to sing. Your dog? My teacher asked. Your dog sings? Joe went over to the open window and whistled. His big brown dog, who waits all day on the playground for him, ran over. He jumped up and put his paws on the window ledge. Then Joe blew into his harmonica. Buddy threw back his big brown dog head, closed his eyes, and howled. See, said Joe, Buddy loves my harmonica playing. Well, I don't know, my teacher started. Then Margaret's teacher came over and wrote something in her notebook and showed it to my teacher. I guess it was, at least it's not cartwheels. Because then my teacher said, okay, 2 rules. First, Buddy has to be on a leash. And second, if he has an accident on the stage, you have to clean it up. Joe said okay, and then my teacher said, that's enough for one day, time for social studies, which was lucky because I was the next person in the row. But I couldn't stop thinking about not having an act to do. My teacher had to say, 6, Clementine, you need to pay attentions, which is a lot, even for me. By the time the bus came, I was so tired from worrying that my neck felt too weak to hold up my head. I flopped over in the seat. What's the matter? Margaret asked me. Are you sick? I might be, I said. Well, I hope you're not too sick to come to the talent show Saturday night. You'd miss my act, which would be a shame because you could really use it. I perked up a little. What do you mean? What's your act? The name of it is Dressing Fashionably, Margaret said. That's not an act. It is too, and it's something I'm very talented at. And certain people are not. Margaret pointed her eyes at me at the certain people part. What about all your other talents? What about gymnastics and singing and playing the accordion? Oh, lots of kids can do those things. Dressing fashionably is a very special talent, and besides, my act will be helpful to certain people. She arrow-eyed me at the certain people part again, but I didn't care because I thought of something. Can I have one of your extra talents then? I asked her. One of the ones you're not going to do? Margaret squinted at me. Can you show me how to do one, as long as you're not going to be performing it? Margaret thought for a minute. Then she said, Well, okay, I guess we can try. Come over tomorrow after school.